I'm here to tell you, just understand the size of the problem you solve is the size of the compensation you were able to earn. You want to earn bigger checks? Solve bigger problems. Point blank.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth-building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. I'm your host and your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod. And on today's episode, Contrarians, what we're going to talk about is I love talking about earning more money because I love having that conversation. I know it's kind of taboo, but guess what? I'm a contrarian to begin with. I talk about taboo topics. I talk about things that most people are thinking about, but don't actually want to share. If you ever find me on Instagram, you realize I like to post memes. I like to post memes because I realize that in the sport of business, I can either be sitting there and be all serious and intense, or I can be laughing all the way to the bank. There's two ways you can live in life, right? Like you can choose to be, sometimes you can be serious when you need to be serious. But for the most part, you realize that this is a game. The game is meant to be enjoyed and to have fun. So I post things that they're going to be there. Because guess what? I want you to know all of me. What you see is what you get. If I'm going to talk shit, if I'm going to go ahead and make fun of things and be able to be there, it's because I make fun of myself. It's all good. That's why I love comedy. Comedy is such a beautiful thing because they're willing to talk about the topics and bring light to things that the average person wouldn't. So let's talk a little bit about compensation, because I believe that there's a drastic misconception about people that I find in different conversations overvalue ideas. And I sit there and I sit in meetings with different startups and things across the board. A person comes to me, he's like, man, I got a great idea. And you know what I think about when I hear I got a great idea? I just go, bleh. Because ideas are worthless without execution. So if they come to me and they say, I have an idea, it's going to solve this problem, it's going to be this thing. Okay, does the market actually want that? Because I want to separate the emotion from the market. The market doesn't care about feelings. The market doesn't care about villains, about heroes, or anything like that. The market is what the market is. It either accepts you or it doesn't. And so if we look at the market, we're going to go, and like we say, the market of business. So if you have an idea, don't come to me unless you've tested it. Have you got somebody to give you money? Because ideas, there's an abundance of ideas. There's very, very few people who know how to execute on an idea. If you don't know how to execute on an idea, have you built a leadership team that does know how to execute on the idea? Because then you may be going somewhere. And I'm not going to be a jerk about the situation. I'm just going to tell you what it is. Go and execute. Figure out this product market fit. Figure out what your total addressable market is. And then only then come back to me once you've been doing something for a couple of years, because there's always flash in the pan shit. Somebody could have went ahead and hit lightning in the bottle and went ahead and just happened to go ahead and I'm going to buy Bitcoin at $30. And then all of a sudden it shoots to the moon to 100 in 2 years. Great. Show me 10 years of you doing that. Or if that happens to be newer, then great. That's fine. Just recognize that it's newer and tell the truth. Like, hey, I'm just going to figure this out. Oh, cool. You may want to talk to people and start this process of advising it. Make sure you tell people, hey, I'm just getting started on this thing. That's completely fine. We love honesty and truth. So let's look at this equation. So you guys know I love using scientific methods to be able to discover things because it's predictable. I'm pragmatic. I like the predictability. For the most part, can I figure out a process that I can do? That's the process of business. Business systems is what helps create valuation. Valuation helps create liquidation events, which means that's how you get access to big, big money. because I don't want to buy a business. I want to buy a business system. I'm going through and acquiring companies, right? So formulas is how you do it. You can create predictability in what you're doing, because if I don't want to buy instability, I want to buy predictability. So the level of the problem you solve determines the level of compensation you earn. Point blank. If you find somebody and you're like, damn, how did they sell their company for 300 million? I bet you they're solving $1 billion worth of problems. Because if you look at it, we can look at the top wealthiest people in the world right now. So we're going to go through Elon. We're going to look at Bezos. We're going to look at Gates. We're going to look at Zuckerberg. We're going to look at Ellison, right? Go look at the valuations of the companies that they have in their portfolio. I'm willing to bet you they are worth over $1 trillion. Because Bezos says it all the time. He's like, yeah, I own 16% of Amazon. And at the current period of time, he was worth 160 billion. Well, if he's only 16%, that means that he's delivered 84% worth of value to the market, which is what Amazon was. It was worth over $1 trillion. So the secret comes to, like, the size of the problems you solve determines your level of compensation. He solved $1 trillion problem. He's worth 160 billion. If you want to be worth $10 million, go solve 100, 200, 300, $400 million problems. If you go do that, you're going to get compensated that way. You can go ahead and yell him like, CEOs make so much money and different things to be able to be there. Okay, this guy's making $20 million a year. What did he grow? Oh, he grew a company from 12 billion to 16 billion. That's $4 billion. You may not realize that, but these numbers, we're so used to hearing billions, but we don't have any concept of what $1 billion actually is. You know, like if you go ahead and you earn, I think it was like $100 a minute, it would take you roughly 12 days before you had $1 million. If you did 100, it would take you 12 days. It would take you 31 years to get to $1 billion. 31 years. To get to $1 trillion, 31,000 years. That's absurd, right? Absurd. Like just thinking of those, but we hear these numbers thrown out and be able to be there. These are absurd numbers. So, like, if that's the case of the problems and things you're solving and places to be, that's okay, right? Solve bigger problems. It's hard to squeeze money out of people who don't have it. So just think about it as a business, right? If you're in a business and you said, hey, my FU number is going to be $10 million a year, but you're serving people and you're charging them roughly $1,000. You know how many people you have to serve? A lot. You have to solve a lot of people, because at $1,000 a clip, in order to get to $10 million a year, let's use 12 million just for easy number's sake, right? That's $1 million a month. So at $1,000, you need to have 1,000 people paying you $1,000 per month. So you have to build up something. If they're willing to pay you $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year, you better be solving $100,000 a year problem for them. So you need to go out and find 1,000 people that want to go through that process. Or I can find 10 people, right? 10, 12 people that have a big problem and they have $100 million problem, and they'll gladly be willing to pay me $1 million a month. The equation is the same. Just got to figure out the size of the problem you want to solve and how much time you want to spend doing it. Because for some people, they're in the phase, they're like, I'm doing credibility and different things. So I want to solve the 1,000 people's problem a month. Okay, happy trails. Go do it. Go be able to figure out. If it's not 1,000, there's okay. Like, all right, I'm like, maybe it's 100 people, but I'm going to solve these. Blah, blah, blah. You just move the zeros around. You just move it. And one other side of the equation, if you're like charging people 100 people, you gotta have 10,000 people. The number can move however you want to move it. But I'm in the basis of teaching all you fellow contrarians that time is going to be time. It takes the same amount of time. It's going to be there. So if it takes you a year to build that, you could, what if it only took you 7 months because you decided to go after a smaller number and you had to up-level yourself in order to be able to understand how to solve that problem? Because the reality is time is time. It doesn't, We can't control it. We can't speed it up. We can't slow it down. It's going to be time because it's based upon your perception of your reality. That clock's going to tick every single time. So once you understand that phase of that equation, you start looking at things a little bit differently. And you go, what size of the problem do I want to solve based upon how much time I want to spend doing it? And that's when you get the opportunity to come back and be like, all right, cool. And you do an assessment of yourself and things to be able to be there. And you realize, let's say you're a doctor and you're like, man, I love being a doctor to be able to be there, but I want to build some type of long-term wealth to go through it. All right, here's my suggestion for you. The regular way of doing it is going to be go buy a bunch of apartment buildings, go manage all those apartment buildings, get multifamily properties, invested in those to go through that process, and then go through that opportunity of dealing with all the ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And then one day you realize, oh my God, this is so much damn work. Or if you're a contrarian, what you do is you find competent operators and you JV with them. You become the capital guy. You say, oh, look, you want to go out and manage all those things? And you just want me to have rights to revenue, like profit split and profit shares to be able to be there? Yeah, any responsibility of things breaking and doing things, that's on you. That's on your number. I just want my return. Then you move into the world of wealth management. Same thing, asset management versus wealth management. I don't want to manage any assets. I would much rather have the rights to revenue like all the big boys do. I can have rights to revenue, or maybe rights to debt as your need bridge till you get to a certain place. Yeah, I'll have that because I have stability and I have income that's going to show up, and I get tax depreciation along the way. That's a contrarian way of thinking of things, is that you move yourself out of like, I love what I'm doing as a doctor. I'm going to stay a doctor. I love what I'm doing in a business. I'm going to stay in the business. You can inject capital in the business and get certain returns, but you want to hedge against yourself, because the sooner we understand, there's a reason why people always try to back themselves with hard assets. It's because while a business can grow and scale and do all kinds of things, eventually you can over leverage yourself because there's only so much you can do there. So I'm going to back it with other hard assets, but the difference is going to be I'm not going to be an operator of those assets. I'm going to go, there's places you can go get triple net leases to be able to be there because you're like, I don't have responsibility for the building or anything to be able to be there. But I have access to cash flow. It's going to show up. That's really where you want to be. You want to be in that space because now you're realizing, for the equation purposes, on this building, I'm solving a $5 million problem, right? Well, I want to take my money, make sure it's growing in phases I'm going there as a contrarian, while still going out and doing the thing that I want to do. Maybe I solve different problems and I'm parking it on hard assets to balance what I'm doing. That's the beautiful thing about creating a fundamental system that can outlast your lifetime, and you can build in a certain trust or certain process, which we can dig into at a different date. But I'm going to go ahead and land the plane and just do a quick recap for those of me that ADHD and just start at the end of the podcast. I'm here to tell you, just understand the size of the problem you solve is the size of the compensation you were able to earn. You want to earn bigger checks? Solve bigger problems. Point blank. So as always, you can catch me on all social media platforms at my first name, last name. So it's going to be Sylvania Harrod across the board. I take all information, all different points of feedback. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, go ahead and shoot me a message. You just got to have the right credentials, because if anything, I'm not going to open up to the contrarians there. Not that I don't value as a soul, but we want to bring high level content to the people. As always, stay grateful, my friends. And until the next episode, cheers.